Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon, and welcome to the penultimate episode of Ahsoka. We only have two left to go, and then we're in the void for a little while in terms of Star Wars content. The good news is that literally about 20 minutes before turning on the camera for this reaction, the WGA announced that the strike will come to an end at midnight Pacific time tonight. So obviously that's great news. There's a lot of really good things that came out of the deal that was struck, including residuals for streaming, restrictions around AI. So again, I think a big victory for the workers in the film and TV industry and the writers. So fingers crossed, everyone's happy with that, and we can get back to making some really, really good TV, including the likes of Skeleton Crew, which I believe has been knocked back because of the strikes. You never know, that might now... It was originally scheduled for the end of this year. I think it's probably been pushed back to early 2024. I think they got all the filming done for it. It's just a lot of the production still needs to be, sorted, post-production and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of movements now with a lot of TV shows and movies now that the strike is about to end. So obviously that's some really good news. Moving back on to Ahsoka, this is, as I say, the second to last episode, and I feel like with the last two episodes kind of really giving us some big stuff. We had the Anakin episode of all the flashbacks, Ahsoka, riding off into the sunset in the Purgle's mouth. Then last episode, we see Thrawn and Ezra for the first time. Get this really cool but almost desolate vibe for Peridea, and I really do like the vibe of this kind of planet, and it does give you another worldly feel, which is kind of crazy when you think about all of the worlds that we've been to in Star Wars. But it did feel, like, hey, we're in a different galaxy. I don't know what they did to make it feel that way, but it did come across as different. And I did say, I can't remember if I said it in the reaction, I might have said it in the live stream on Sunday, but Peridea itself was giving me kind of North Wales quarry vibes. Anyone who's been to like North Wales, where it's quite hilly and rocky, specifically I'm thinking about, sort of Anglesey, Colwyn Bay area, you'll know what I mean. The ground is fairly, rocky and hilly, and it just gives me those vibes. But I think this is good. I think Star Wars does need to get a bit more creative. It needs to do different things. And that's what I've kind of liked about all of the shows so far, is no matter what your thoughts on Andor, Book of Boba Fett, Mando, Obi-Wan, whatever it might be, you can't deny that each show has had a different feel. It's had a different vibe. And I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I think Ahsoka is now leading the way in trying to change what we can expect of Star Wars, and trying to bring in some of the more spiritual and, maybe some of the wider aspects of the Force and, spirituality that maybe some of the casual fans have not been aware of. They explored it a bit in Clone Wars, explored it a bit more in Rebels, but I think for the casual fan, they've probably not been too connected with some of the fringe elements of Star Wars, and I think it's great that Ahsoka is bringing those elements in. As I say, it's great to see Ezra, spot on portrayal, spot on, voice, the same with Ahsoka. Ahsoka now, to me, looks, feels, and sounds like I imagine Ahsoka would. Ashley Eckstein, perfect for, the animated show. But Rosario has surprised me at how well she's taken to the role of Ahsoka. Same for Thrawn. I saw a lot of people, again, finding anything they can to nitpick about, something. And this time it was Lars Mikkelsen having a slight dad bod. They're like, well, Thrawn, he would keep himself in shape. He's got a bit of a pot belly, and people were saying, I saw someone post the clip of him fighting the Dark Troopers in Rebels, and like, I hope we get to see Thrawn do this. And I'm like, my guys, Thrawn is in his late 60s. He's been stuck in a galaxy on almost derelict Star Destroyer for 10 years. He's done well just to keep his uniform in shape for the most part. How do you expect him to keep in fighting shape? You know, you expect too much, you demand too much. Just enjoy it. Let go of all this little nitpicky bullshit. Speaking of nitpicky bullshit, if I was to say anything about last week's episode that I could point a little bit of criticism at, and this just goes to the wider general kind of every Star Wars show at the moment, and even shows that aren't Star Wars that use the volume, I would say that I'm beginning to really notice the volume, and not in a good way. The volume is brilliant when used correctly. The volume is brilliant for ship shots, for shots where you have a pre-built set and the volume is used to, you know, give the surrounding. Where the volume really falls down is when it's expected to cast vast areas and vast sets, like last week with the Star Destroyer interior. I didn't notice it on the first watch through. One of my friends pointed this out, but I really noticed going back and looking at it. At the very end, when all the stormtroopers are carrying those caskets into the Star Destroyer, you can tell they are CGI. The CGI is very, very noticeable because of the way they move. And it's not a janky kind of, are they undead kind of movement? That's a computer-generated image kind of janky. And it's just very noticeable. And I said this in Strange New Worlds as well when I was watching it. Some of those big, open, vast environments just do not work with the volume because you can see where the actual built set ends and the volume begins, which is why it's better when you have a sort of indoor set with the volume around it, like a starship. But it's a minor criticism. I'm just worried about them overusing it. It's a tool, like anything else. It should be used in the right circumstance, not used all the time. And I think Dave Filoni did mention something about wanting to use it all the time. So that's the only small criticism I've got. Other than that, loving the show. Anyway, I've spoke long enough. Let's jump in and let's watch episode number 7. Oh, there he is in person. The worst senator in the world.
My job is to protect the people of this republic. Oh, I protected the new republic by ignoring you.
Fuck you. Also, is that Admiral Akbar? I think it is. I think that's an Admiral's insignia. The blue 5-pin.
What about the conflict on Mandalore?
Yes, tying the two together.
Gideon was a
So this
acting on his own. There's no proof.
This takes place just after Mandalore.
No immediate threat to this republic.
I'll tell you what
I want Thrawn to come back and land in this guy's front yard.
And I will not stand for it.
That's C-3PO. You can just tell straight away. Alright, we're a bit on the nose of the whole identification thing.
I object.
Transcript.
In the strongest terms.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. I tell you to shut the fuck up in the strongest terms.
The transcript shows that Senator Organa...
Court cannot admit evidence of this kind from a mere droid.
Yeah, Chopper's about to fucking commit some war crimes here.
Senator Organa is willing to overlook this mistake.
Oh, that's an Anakin hologram. Okay. She's held on to some of her old training holograms.
In this war, you will face more than just droids.
It's almost like she's kicked back into old school training mode.
It's my responsibility to prepare you. If we get separated or something happens...
Or, you know, I turn to the dark side and kill a bunch of young ones.
Don't be afraid.
It's a handy hologram to have.
He made 20 or more of these recordings.
I think the odds are pretty good.
No, in fact, they're terrible. Astronomically terrible.
Well, you should have said
I do love Hu Yang.
I did, but you
He's
never...
a pragmatist of the finest kind. Boom. Very well coordinated, folks.
Picking up a lot of interference.
Uh-oh. Are they shooting at the whales? They're shooting at the whales. They are there. They mined the system? Wow, that's giving me DS9 vibes.
It's the planet. The field eventually terminates.
It'll stop somewhere, is what he's trying to say.
You had to say something.
Optimistic.
Alright, they've had enough now. Damn, they got that minefield up fast.
We are almost through.
I'm going to make for the debris field.
I would not recommend that.
Come on, where's that optimism?
I can't find an opening. The field is too dense.
There are too many whale corpses. Oh, look at that Star Destroyer.
Among them was a T6 class Jedi shuttle.
It would seem Ahsoka Tano is alive and well after all.
Yep.
Here is everything the Inquisitorial database had on her.
Her master was
Skywalker.
General Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those two have a bit of history.
Correct, Grand Admiral.
Jedi are very good at hiding. They've been practicing that for years. However, we are
that is a
getting
dig.
to know our adversary. Quite dangerous.
He knows
One
Anakin.
must control all variables. Put her on a path of her own choosing, so that no matter which direction she takes, we'll always be one step ahead of her.
I like that their homes are essentially little speeders.
Missed everything. It's been a while.
And Jason. Mention Jason.
I was beginning to think we'd never find you. How did you? What? Find me?
Ahsoka took me on as her apprentice.
She what? Why? I mean, congratulations. Really?
Go on.
No, that's great.
Yeah, Sabine doesn't really know what's... She's going to assume that
That's complicated.
Ahsoka got stuck.
Yeah.
Find her?
Yes, Grand Admiral.
It's interesting, the power dynamic. It's almost like, you know, he's the one solely in charge, rather than it being a cooperative. Just going to reach out. What if she contacts Ezra instead?
Sabine. I see her.
Oh, they've latched onto her.
The Jedi.
They interrupted the phone call, folks.
Captain Enoch.
Uh-oh.
They found us.
Don't worry, I know where we're going.
Wonderful. So, on our way.
Tano will pursue Sabine Wren, whom we have wisely sent far from here. Contact
Yeah.
the fighter group and have them re-engage the opponent.
I doubt that she could take on a Star Destroyer, even one as damaged as the Chimera. That's a very slow turn and circle you've got there.
Then take your place in the coming empire.
Oh, he's leaving her behind? Or he's...
You won't help?
Your ambition drives you in one direction.
Yeah, he can sense it.
My path lies in another.
God, that's gotta feel...
I've located Ezra Bridger.
Does she not feel abandoned?
Impatience for victory will guarantee defeat.
That is a very wise lesson. It's really horrible symbolism here with obviously Ray Stevenson having passed away. It feels like both the character and the actor giving that departing lesson. Of course, slingshots are their weapon of choice. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, jeez. Ezra, anytime you want to take your lightsaber back and start doing some stuff. Yeah, shoot the mounts. It sounds awful, but shoot the mounts. Alright, Ezra, now's... Yeah, now's the time to do some Jedi stuff. I just love how disinterested Balon is in the whole situation.
We cannot land while under attack. Standard Jedi mission protocol states.
Standard common sense.
Oh, not this again.
Once I'm on the ground, draw the fighters away.
Yeah, didn't I feel terrible?
No!
Oh god, I love Hugh Yang. Slide, yes. Oh. It's time for a rematch.
This is a surprise.
I don't want to see a rematch, though. I want to see where Balon's going. She seems more confident this time around.
Gave it to you. It's yours now.
I suppose he's been there for almost a decade without,
That's all I need.
Okay.
I'm gonna need more than that.
So now no one's using a lightsaber. My disappointment is immeasurable. God damn, I love his intensity. I love the way he just swings. Uh-oh. You burned his hair. There you go. There you go.
It's not looking good for you.
And you had to go and say it. Well, you should have seen that coming.
I don't have to.
Oh, here comes Hu Yang. Nice. He's got a choice to make. Does he leave Shin to her fate, or does he go after what he's been dreaming of? See, a lightsaber would help here against the blasters. Well, they sound like normal troopers. They don't sound undead.
Counter and circle in tandem.
I love that you get to see him actually giving orders with tactics.
Fire!
There's Ahsoka.
Well, they're all back together.
I really hope you do too, Hu Yang. If anything happens to you, I will murder people.
Acceptable losses given the absence of Lord Balin.
This is why he was only going to send 2
In
squadrons.
the grand scheme of things, with our enemy distracted, the cargo transfer is now almost complete.
Caskets.
Which means we shall soon leave this forsaken place. Time.
Always thinking of the bigger picture.
Time is very much on our side now.
Does that mean Shin is going to go back?
And miss this reunion?
Yeah. I thought for a second she'd forgot who was standing right in front of her.
I think I might be going home after all.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. You still don't have a way back. So yeah, a few interesting turns in that episode. I didn't expect to see Shin and Balon split in the way that they did. And, you know, it's like, I think it's clever in a way that they play it so that Balon did see the fact that Shin is a little bit young, a bit naive. She has a different idea as to what she wants. She wants power. I don't think she is capable of grasping what it is that Balon is trying to do. And so he's kind of letting her go in a way. But that was a surprise because I wasn't expecting that to happen. And he, again, seemed very, very conflicted. And I wonder if, you know, Shin, not only being cast aside by her master, but seemingly cast aside by the Imperials, is going to feel doubly betrayed now, and this is going to kind of, I don't know, force her even further down the rabbit hole, you know, make her more angry. You know, I think that was the whole point, was that Balon has tried to instill in her, you know, lessons not of fully the dark side, and certainly to avoid the naivety of the Jedi. He's tried to find that middle ground for her. And she's still full of anger. And that is always going to, you know, lead you down the path of mistakes. So it's interesting to see those two split. And you know, at first I thought that he had, after the fight with he and Ahsoka, I thought that, you know, he was clearly torn between going back to help Shin knowing that she'd be outnumbered and going on to complete his original quest. And I thought that originally he'd set off in the direction of Shin, but he never showed up. So I'm wondering if maybe he actually didn't go towards Shin and he's gone to do whatever it is that he came here to do. Either way, he's only got one more episode to do it, whatever it is. They're kind of... I certainly hope that that gets resolved and it's not something they planned to do in the second season, because we all know, unfortunately, how that will work out with Ray Stevenson having passed away. But a few interesting things here. You know, obviously Ezra not taking up the mantle of the lightsaber, using the Force in a more melee style, which, I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see the fact that he has the ability to do it, and it probably does help in close combat. You know, I'd say that a lightsaber is good in circumstances whereby someone else has a lightsaber, or there are a lot of blasters coming at you, because, you know, one of the things that the lightsaber excels at is deflecting blaster bolts. And I kind of felt like that's what they needed in the showdown with the stormtroopers. So it'll be interesting to see whether he does take back up a lightsaber at some point. Maybe not the one that he gave to Sabine, but just in general, you know, because he didn't seem... I was expecting an Ezra of, you know, 9-10 years down the line to be a little bit more skilled. And I don't mean to say that in a way that he didn't seem skilled, but, you know, he got caught off guard by Shin quite easily, you know, and by my reckoning, you know, Ezra probably would have had about the same amount of training as Shin, although clearly Shin has had more one-to-one time with Hairmaster than Ezra did. But I would have thought that Ezra's time in the wild might have given him a bit of an advantage. But it was nice to see the reunion with Ahsoka. And again, what I think this episode did quite well is to depict Thrawn's willingness to sacrifice a short-term victory for the long-term goal. He did that a few times in Rebels, where he let the Rebels win, essentially, or escape, in order to aid his bigger plan. That's how he found Attalon. He found Attalon because he was letting the Rebels escape and using their trajectory to narrow down where their base was. And, you know, obviously to people who don't share in his intellect, that might be a bit short-sighted. It might be a bit narrow-minded, because they can't see the bigger picture. And he's right. You know, they've almost fully loaded the cargo. I think they're caskets. I think they're going to be dead Night Sisters that will be reanimated upon arrival in the original galaxy. I don't think the stormtroopers are undead, because again, they were talking. It sounded like they had normal voices. They sounded like they were, you know, moving and acting like normal stormtroopers would. But I do think that there is going to be some undead stuff coming with these caskets. And again, I like his pragmatism in that, you know, he only sent the 2 squadrons because he knew there was a good chance that whenever there's a Jedi involved, things aren't going to go quite the way that they planned. So he sent the minimum forces needed to distract them so that he could gain the advantage of time. And that's exactly what happened, you know. The only criticism I'd probably have of this episode, and again, it just ties into the visuals. There was a couple of moments in there where I just felt like the CGI, the imagery was a bit janky. Ahsoka jumping off the ship, Shin. I think it wasn't Shin. It was when Ahsoka, I think, originally darted out on one of the mounts. It just looked a little strange. Again, not sure if that was done in camera on the volume for one of them, but it just feels like it's not as polished as it should be, you know. And again, it's minor criticism, but it's just something that is noticeable, and I think it's always good to kind of point these things out just to see if anyone else notices it, and to just, you know, again, I want to be fair. I want to show everyone that, I'm not immune to criticizing if I do feel there's something wrong. But for the most part, I enjoyed this episode. Again, nice to get that reunion with Ezra. Nice to see Thrawn doing his thing. And again, throwing in some spanners where I didn't expect them to be thrown in. A rematch between Balon and Ahsoka. I like the fact that she's more confident now, and she doesn't have to win, to defeat him. But it leaves us with this final episode, obviously wondering what Balon is actually going to do, whether he is going to go after this power, what Shin is going to do, having seemingly been abandoned by both Master and Empire. How our trio are going to head back to the normal galaxy. They're going to have to hitch a ride back on the Chimera or on the hyperspace ring. I think that's clear. I don't see this show ending this season without Thrawn returning to the main galaxy. I think that's where we're up to. It's just a matter of, does Ahsoka end up coming with them? How does that work out? How is that going to work itself? Because we do only have that one episode left now, but I think it's inevitable that Thrawn does return at the end of the next episode, and then season 2 builds up to the consequences of that return. And it was interesting to see here them link up Mandalorian and confirm that this takes place just after the end of season 3 of The Mandalorian. Because again, they really are going heavy on this whole New Republic not being aware of the threat or being willing to deal with the threat of the Empire and eventually the First Order. And I don't know how I feel necessarily about Senator Ziona being so forcefully dickish. He did come across a little bit dickish in Resistance, but it didn't seem this bad, But, I mean, they need someone to be that antagonizing force in the New Republic, and they chose him. But some interesting cameos as well. Obviously, C-3PO. A little bit on the nose with the whole identification stuff. And, nice mentions of Leia kind of saving Hera from that court-martial. Pretty sure it was Akbar as well on that tribunal, because he had the 5 pins, but they were blue, so I think that signifies an admiral rather than a general that's red. But yeah, no, interesting episode. Like I say, I felt like this one was going to be a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit less stated than the others, because you need to have that big breath before you go into the finale, and this is what it felt like. So I enjoyed it. I really did, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go now at the end of the show. Hopefully we've not peaked too early. It feels like episode 5 specifically and 6 are where the show has kind of really peaked. We've taken a little bit of a dive just to relax, and I'm hoping that we finish strong with episode 8, because I think nothing would be more unfortunate than having had a really good show so far and them not stick the landing on it. I really want them to stick the landing. But we'll find out next week. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you for the last episode.